We have to start with the war in Ukraine. It affects us all. But your position, I would say, it's not exactly as the position of the U.S. government.
My position is this war could end soon, even right away, on the basis of reasonable negotiations. The American position is no, the only way this war can end is to defeat Putin. To my mind, that is both wrong and completely unrealistic.
President Biden says we are going to win 100%.
How do you defeat a country with 1,600 nuclear weapons? I don't think the U.S. government has thought this out at all. And I would say the same thing is true of the European Union. They talk about defeating Russia.
Professor, 1/3, maybe a little less, of Ukraine territory is occupied by Russia. So insisting on negotiations right now means that Putin is winning.
Well, I already gave my advice many times to the Ukrainian people and government, which is don't get caught in a proxy war between the U.S. and Russia because your country will be destroyed. And that is the tragedy. I said to the Ukrainians, look at Afghanistan. Is that what you want to look at? 15 years of occupation and continued destruction, 20 years basically from the time of the U.S. invasion. Don't do it. I told them all my life the U.S. has been, quote, helping, in quotation marks, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, Iraq, Syria, Libya. What kind of help? This ends up destroying the country. In the U.S., starting in 1992, the dominant group in American security policy came to believe that the U.S. is the world's only superpower. So the whole mindset in the U.S. East Coast elite is the U.S. runs the world and should run the world.
Don't you think that Ukrainians, they don't have the right to choose their own future?
The Ukrainians have the right to choose their own economic future, their own political future, but not their own military future. Because choosing their own military future, for example, Ukraine saying, our future is that the U.S. has military bases in Ukraine, is not a choice that Ukraine can make by itself. That's a threat to Russia. I would advise strongly the Mexican government, for example, do not make a military alliance with China. That's not your choice. That would be a threat. By the way, if Mexico one day said, we listened to the U.S., they said we can do anything we want, we're a free people, we choose China as our partner, I would predict that the U.S. invasion of Mexico would start within about a minute. I strongly advise the Mexican government not to make a military alliance with China.
Professor, how can we understand relatively hawkish position of the European allies?
I'm really disappointed in European leaders right now because I know privately they have all sorts of views that they are not explaining to their public. I've spoken to the heads of government in Europe where they've said to me, for example, NATO enlargement, very bad idea. In fact, Scholz went to Russia in February 2022 and said to Putin, as long as I'm chancellor, NATO's not expanding. And Putin looked at him and said, yeah, how long are you going to be chancellor? I need the United States as my counterpart, not you. And he told the truth. This is a U.S. alliance. It's not a German alliance. And the U.S. is absolutely on the hardline side. The real mindset now of the U.S. leadership is we have two enemies that threaten our unipolar world. One is minor, that's Russia. we'll weaken them. We'll have the war for a while. We'll wear them down. But that's a second-rate regional power. They forget about 1,600 nuclear weapons. They forget about 11 time zones. They forget about some of the largest resource deposits in the world. They forget about the talents of the Russian people. All of that. No, Russia, but we'll weaken them. We'll weaken them. The one that's terrifying them is China. They don't quite know what to do. So right now, one of the arguments is we need to be tough in Ukraine to show China we mean business. If we back down now, what's China going to do over Taiwan? Honestly, Ukraine isn't even the center of attention. Ukraine thinks, oh, this is a war about us. No. First, it's a war to weaken Russia, in which Ukraine is stuck, losing hundreds of thousands of people and cities. And it's horrible. But it's not even about Ukraine in the twisted mindset of some of these elites. It's about China.